So we're into the final part where, I've given you all of these different strategies and we've just layered one on top of the other, and when you go back through your notes or you rewatch the videos, just put each one in place and focus on getting that first step right before you move on to the next one, before you move on to the next one. If you try and do a little bit of everything, you won't end up getting anything done, and you'll actually find that incrementally this just builds upon itself. Doing step 1 is going to make step 2 easier, make step 3 easier, and it just kind of rolls on from there. So I just wanted to bring you back to what we talked about and some things we talked about at the start of the day. Firstly, you need to make sure that you understand that the business, building a good solid business, it's more of a marathon than it is a sprint. This is not something that you don't build a business overnight and you'll be the next Richard Branson by Monday morning. It takes hard work. I've given you the strategy and the game plan that could shortcut years and years of building, but the fact is it still takes a hell of a lot of hard work. It takes effort, but the rewards are worth it. And what I'm showing you is how you can build a business that you can do the work once but get paid forever. That's really what it's all about. And I want to make sure that now that we've started to plant all of these seeds throughout today, we've planted so many different seeds in your mind, you want to make sure that you give them time to start to grow. You don't want to plant them and then go dig them up in a week or so and wonder where that fruit is. You've got to remember as well that, it's like if you've got something that's in momentum, or a big ship, it takes a while for that ship to change directions. Like your businesses might move a little bit slowly, and to get all of these elements sort of lined up takes time. Once you get everything all set up, you're amazed at how quickly that success comes. But like they say, success overnight takes a good 10 years to get there. It's all about lining all of the elements up, and then bang, you flick that light switch and then it just goes absolutely mental. And you've probably spent all of this time heading in one direction, putting all of the right energy in. It's going to take time to sort of turn things around and get you pointing in a different direction. So just make sure you give yourself that time and don't be too hard on yourself. What I want you to do is take everything that we talked about, build it all out, and then we just want to automate the back end of our business. So on podcast interviews, I interviewed 2 guys, Jim Fleck, who's an old school direct mail guy, and Richard Sheffrin, who is the guru's guru when it comes to internet marketers. And both of them, they hadn't heard each other's interview, but they both touched on this thing I found quite interesting. They said what most business owners do is they'll spend a lot of time trying to build out their back end. They'll try and add a new product line. They'll try to keep adding. What you want to try and do, you build out that back end, get it as automated as possible, and then you start to focus on your front end. So once you've built out that back end, using your autoresponders and making sure that the sequence is right, and you get the bonding and they get introduced to all the different products and services, and then the delivery of those services as well are all automated. Once that all happens, then your attention needs to focus on a new area. Like shift focus, and you'll start to focus on the front end marketing. And it's all about how can I drive as many leads into that funnel as possible. So I'll just take you briefly through, and this will take you back to the map that we drew at the start of the day, and I suppose tie it all in together. And then you start to think about, well, how can I build this for my business? So we've got our SEO free report. So that's our free report. So free. Then we've got, underneath that, we've got the 4 different products. So we've got the SEO course. We've got the outsource course. We've got the web video, and we've got the small biz. Underneath that, we've got the workshops. We've got the masterminds. We've got the coaching. And then underneath that, we've got the services, which might look a little bit counterintuitive, but look how much effort goes into this front end up here. And really the services, it's not where we're focusing as much anymore now. So SEO, ADP, we've got the press release as a service, we've got web video. Basically, a lot of these services are just done for you type services. So you can buy the home study course to learn how to do it, how we do it, or we'll do it for you. So now that we've built out that's kind of very automated. As part of this as well, we've got our autoresponder sequence. So you've got your autoresponder, where they're basically getting a series of emails over the course of 3 months. These emails point them to different parts of the website. So it might be the About Us page, a little bit of bonding first, and then after that, then it starts to point to the products and services and stuff like that. So it's a very automated. I've automated my back end. We add in a new component down here as well. I built it with a shopping cart that enables me to have this all in the one shopping cart, so affiliates can now start to promote my products. So we set it up in a way now where we offer commission. Like, I mean, some of these products, like the SEO course sells for about $1,400 for the SEO method, and I split that 60-40 with my affiliates. So if someone else goes out and sells this SEO course, then they'll get 40% of that sale price. So I use other affiliates, people who want to market my product, will start marketing that product. So that's another way that we kind of like generate some leads in there. So that is very much an automated back end. Now where I'm starting to focus, I started to focus after that on automated front ends. So then I started to look at YouTube. So what do? We took little snippets from the workshop, we cut them up into pieces, we uploaded them to YouTube, and then those end up pushing back down here and also pushing to the free report. Then we had Facebook, which we're just sort of ramping up with Facebook at the moment. We held off on doing that for a little while. Then we've got Twitter. Now, stuff like Twitter, this is a bit to do with more bonding with me and making sure that they know we're on the cutting edge and demonstrating that, I walk the walk. Then we've got, I think I should add in here, the Melbourne SEO blog. So, the blog, we've got tons of different articles that are just getting posted on a regular basis, and then they're generating. So if you imagine all of these are collecting people on the front end, and then I'm kind of shifting them down into my free report. They get into my autoresponder sequence, and then they get introduced to the rest of the business. So we've got the SEO method. Then we've got the new Dave approved. We're providing product reviews and services. We've got podcast interviews. So that's kind of like expert positioning. All of this, it's just free content that sells me, and then I funnel that all into here, and then they just go through that automated thing. So automate the back end, and now I've looked at all of my automation on the front end, and then the final piece of the puzzle, and this is kind of like moving into, what am I doing with my next couple of moves? Once that's done, you saw I started to monitor my conversion rates and things like that, figuring out how much someone is worth to me. So I can go, okay, every person who signs up to this free report, on average, will spend X amount of dollars. Therefore, I know I can buy a lead for 50 cents. And, I can spend anywhere up to 50 cents or $5 or whatever once I know that number. Then I can start to go into paid media. And we didn't even touch on paid media when you talk about, running banner ads, Google AdWords, basically paying. Once you know that number, business all comes down to knowing that number. Once you know what the lifetime value of a client is for you, and you go, I know a client is worth $5,000 for me when they sign up, then you can figure out how many clients, how many prospects do you need to come through your doors for you to convert that one person? Then you can figure out that magic number. How much are you able to spend to acquire that lead? Once you know that number, you just go out and you buy those leads and you put them into your funnel, and it's all automated. So, and then once that kind of happens, that's when I kind of step out of the business and then we move into more asset acquisition, which I talked about at the start of the day. We start to buy web properties around this that can help support this, where someone else has already built up a website with a community of, maybe I buy a forum, an internet marketing forum, where I could buy that forum and then I could just plug all of these products and pitch it to this here. That's me buying a good asset. Start buying assets, and then after that, then you sort of figure out where you want to take the business. Anyway, that's kind of like...
Holiday there too, something?
Yeah, there's a holiday down here. So, the good thing about holidays is, we've started hiring a team, and we've got quite a good team over in... it's almost like cash for comment. That was good timing. We've hired a team over in the Philippines, and now we get to go to the Philippines, and it's a business expense. So we're heading over to the Philippines early next year, meet the team, and then have the holiday on the back end of that. So now that I've showed you how to build out all of that, you can't build it on your own. That's a hell of a lot of work. I know I've crammed a lot into one day. Now you need to make sure that you start to build that team. I didn't have a photo of you, Sally, otherwise you would be up there too. You can't do it alone. You want to make sure that you build your business like McDonald's. Make sure that you build it very systematized, and so that you automate those core central business systems so it can run without you. Once that happens, then you want to start to hire A players. An A player is someone who just makes stuff work. You'll find an A player can work with average systems and they'll still do a great job. A B player will work with the most amazing systems and still screw it up. So if you work with really good people, even if your systems aren't quite right, they'll still end up, bumping it up. So that's why you want to, make sure that you get people like Adrian and you get people like Sally, because they're A players. And then you start to look at for out-tasking, or what's the process for outsourcing? People first start off, they do out-tasking. You might go to somewhere like Rent-A-Coda or Elance. There are different websites out there where you can hire people to do one-off tasks for you. And it's a great way to try and lighten your load. You don't take them on as a full-time team member, and you just give them odd jobs here and there. So that's stage one. Stage two is then you start to outsource. You might out-task first, find a couple of good people who do good jobs for you, and then start to give them regular work. That's kind of outsourcing now. Now you've got a regular task that you give to someone. So you have a look here, I've built out this map, and if we go all the way back to the start of the day, and I talked about this idea of build out your maps first, figure out what is the quickest way for me to build this, and then think of who do I need to hire to make this happen and in what order. And then I've just given you the map of how you build a really successful business. You go, okay, well, this is who I need to hire first, this is who I need to hire second, and you grow from there. And then the final stage, after you start outsourcing, is what I call insourcing. And that's when you start bringing on team members who actually become part of your team. And for my Filipinos, when they come on, they're part of Melbourne SEO services. They're on the website. Grace is there, Franz is there, MJ's there, Nilia's there. We'll have the photos on there where they have, their bios. They're part of the team. They just live overseas, and the reason that we've started to look for the outsourcing over to the Philippines is. Sometimes it's hard to find people as good workers and team members here in Australia than you do over in the Philippines. The Philippines, they have an amazing work ethic. They really have a desire to please. They've got an excellent command of the English language. You've got geo arbitrage where I can pay them extremely good money over there. For them, $6 an hour is extremely good money. They might go get a job for $2 an hour, but I'll pay them a lot more because I'll reward them. I'm paying them more than they'd get locally, but it still makes so much sense for me because I'm paying pennies on the dollar to hire these team members who can execute anything here as good as, you know, any of the team members who are locally. So I mean, we've got people who write for us for the Melbourne SEO blog. We've got people who are, you know, building those backlinks. We've got people who set up podcast interviews, building up that team member. And the Philippines has been, you know, great for us, and we've got some fantastic team members from over there. How do you actually find A players? We use a method we call the George Foreman method, and the reason we call it the George Foreman method is because you give them a real good grilling. And the way that you do it is, firstly, you've got to know who it is that you're looking for. Like, who is an A player? What is it that makes them an A player? Get really clear on the type of person that you're looking for. And by drawing out these maps that I talked about, you'll know who you should be hiring. And then you want to make sure that you write an ad that hooks them. So this is, again, where sales comes into it. When I wrote an ad on Seek just recently for the position that Sally just filled, we had, you know, well over 100 applicants come through our process and apply for that position, and we sort of whittled it down to the cream of the crop, and then you're looking at the cream right over there. And that process, it came about writing an ad that spoke to the person that we were looking to hire. So I mean, when we hired Adrian and we sat down with Ben, my current, like the other video guy who was there before Adrian, and we talked about, well, what is it that's important to someone who's making video? What they want to make sure that they're making videos that are going to get seen on a worldwide audience. That's what we. So I wrote that into the ad. If you're someone who's interested in video, who's looking to learn how to use web video because it's the way of the future, and you want to get a worldwide audience and get your stuff seen all around the world, then you better read this ad, because you might have found what it is that you're looking for. And that's how we sort of opened it. So you want to make sure that you write those ads correctly. Then you make sure that, you know, we advertise the position. After we advertise it, we've just shifted something recently now, and it's working really well for us. Rather than getting people to send in different resumes, we send them straight from the job ad to go ahead and fill out a survey. They go out and fill a 20-minute survey first. And what does that do? That means we don't have to look through all of the resumes that come through, because a whole lot of people are just going to disqualify themselves because they won't take the time or make the effort to fill out the survey. And the person who won't fill out the survey isn't an A player anyway, so I don't want them. So that's a good thing. And then of the people who do fill it out, a lot of people, you know, they might not fill out all of the questions. Okay, well, if you can't be bothered with something as easy as filling out a survey, then chances are when you come through to actually doing the job, you're probably going to let other things slide as well. So having that questionnaire up front has worked really well for us. And then after that, then we get them to send in a resume. We pre-screen the resumes and look for, you know, certain attributes. These days now, and early on I used to take on people who hadn't had any experience, but now I really like people who've at least had some experience. It just makes it easier to work with. And then we get them to complete a small task. So if you imagine each step of this, we run a job ad, we get lots of applicants, then we pre-screen it, then we ask them to do a small task. This is before they even get to an interview. So I sent Sally an email and said, can you write an email? We've got a client who is having trouble playing some DVDs. Can you write him an email and what would you say to him? So Sally wrote up that email, and we said, we're running a workshop. Can you put together a spreadsheet? We're just a few little small easy tasks. You know, it's not meant to be complicated or anything like that. It's just to see how they go with the small things. Like Sally, I think one of the things that made yours stand out, very good attention to detail. Like, I mean, there was, you know, it looked like she'd actually thought through it. And I think with the email that you sent, you put it almost like on a Melbourne SEO letterhead, and you coloured the S and the E and the O, and we were like, oh, it's good attention to detail. And then the final stage is interviewing, and we do that top grading style. So there's a good book, if you haven't read it, by Brad Smart called Top Grading, and it's all about how to interview. And the long and the short of it is you want to make sure that when you interview people, you interview them to find out about their history and their past, because you'll often find people have reoccurring themes. If you interview someone and they said, oh yeah, I used to work for this place, the reason I left is, you know, the boss was an absolute arse, he was always on my back. And then the next job, they say, oh yeah, so I worked here, and so why did you end up leaving that job? Oh, you wouldn't believe it, the boss there, such an arse, he was always on my back. And then you moved on to this new position. So why did you leave there? And it's the same recurring thing. And they don't notice it when they're going through, but it's quite obvious when someone has this same recurring theme that the problem isn't necessarily the job. There's a good chance that they are the problem, and they just keep on going to the same problem. So we have two people, like actually it was three. Age and Ben were in there, and usually it's one person doing the interviewing, asking the questions, and then one person who's scribing and writing down sort of answers and stuff like that. So that way I can focus on the questions, and the scribe can then focus on making sure that they get all of the answers down and things like that. So if you imagine, that's a massive filtering process, and that's how you get A players, and that's how you'll grow your business incredibly quickly. So a real life example, this is MJ. This was just before I flipped and started putting the survey up front, but we ran an ad on jobstreet.com, which is like the Seek over in the Philippines. We got 121 resumes. I pre-screened and did a questionnaire. We got them down to 14. Then from there, 11 of them actually returned doing the questionnaire. 5 of them did the task. We interviewed 3, and then MJ joined the team. So what a massive process to get right down. But I mean, that's the real key, is getting good people on your team. I just gave you 10 minutes of how to do outsourcing. We did a full one-day workshop on that one, the outsourcing profit machine. If you want to find out more about that, it pretty much goes through that. So once you've built out all of these maps, you know who it is you're going to hire. You might start to look at doing some outsourcing. Once you've built all of this, like where to after that, you can have a look at then really starting to fine-tune your business. And that's when you start to look at, the 5 ways that you can grow a business. This comes from sort of like Jay Abraham, I think is where I first heard about this. There are really only 5 ways to improve any business. You can increase the number of leads that are coming through your business. You can increase the rate at which you're converting those leads. You can increase the average sale, so how much you're actually getting that person to purchase. You can increase the margin, as in how much money do you make when you sell something. So an info product we make maybe 10x our money, whereas when we sell a band t-shirt we might only get 100% markup. And then making sure that we get them to repeat sales. They're really the 5 things. So I'm working on a little project at the moment. I probably want to come out with a product at some point in time. Pretty much it's just, I'm coming down now, just working out underneath each one. So under leads, under conversions, just coming up with like, what are the best 30 strategies for each of those that I'm working on. So this is something that I'm still working on at the moment, but all those strategies are tested. I've seen other people try and do it, but I think it's coming from old school. Marketing's changed now. There's a lot more stuff happening online. So you want to just make sure that you're bringing the right elements into doing this, and then helping to grow your business. So all you should start to think about when you get to this point is just maybe you start to do one thing under each category every month. So your business might have matured, so now you start to think, what's one new way that I could generate some extra leads? What is a new way that I can increase the conversion? What is one new way that I can increase my average dollar sale? How can I slightly increase my margin? What's one new strategy I can introduce to get clients to come back or add referrals or that type of thing? So that's what you want to think about sort of as you move into the tail end of maturing that business. So how do you eat an elephant? Like I've just given you a massive elephant there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. First things first, this comes from Rich Sheffrin. I would do just-in-time learning. A lot of people go out and you might think of all of this content's absolutely fantastic and you might want to go ahead and purchase all of the courses in one go. I say don't do that. Just I've given you the process that you need to go through. Start on each little block and only purchase courses when you get to that piece. And you learn that piece as you need it, rather than buying something and then thinking, I'll save it until I get to that point. Don't worry about that. Just one piece at a time, and do just-in-time learning. At the start of every day, make sure that you focus on the 3 most important topics or 3 most important outcomes and jobs that you want to accomplish for that day. Line that out up front so that you know what it is that you're going to be working on for the day. And it only has to be 3. Like sometimes I struggle. At the moment, I'm still trying to get, just 1 or 2 important tasks done for the day. It's so easy for all of the noise to come up. But if you have your maps planned out and you know what it is that you need to be doing next, you should be able to intuitively know. You'll go, this is probably the next thing I need to be working on. And then you should start each day maybe doing that whatever that next piece is. Do that first at the start of the day before all the noise and everything comes in and you start checking your emails, and before you know it, it's 4:30 and you're thinking about finishing up for the day. You don't have to be perfect, just get it going, and the real key is focus. Like I've given you lots of stuff there that was all by design. Just hone it all down and then focus and just start working through. So the action plan from here, make the maps that I talked about there. So that's my map. Your map's going to look different from that. Just think about your own business, find out where the service is, where you're exchanging time for dollars. Focus on that first. Think about how you can build a business where you can add in other elements where potentially you can start to step out. And once you start to step out, you're going to be putting yourself in a much better place, because then you don't get caught up in the day-to-day. And then start building a team that's going to help you do that, and then stay focused and just keep following through that plan. Let me do my final story, because everybody likes a good story, and then we'll finish up. So I just wanted to finish up similar to the way that I started, telling a little bit of a story, and I wanted to tell you about attending this Billionaire in Training boot camp. So you remember I was saying this was the workshop that I ended up attending while the whole MCG debacle was going on, and I was up there, and I think there's something to be said for attending workshops where it's complete submersion. Like when you go into a workshop where it's for like 5 days and you start at at dawn, I think we started at like 6 a.m. and then we went through to like 11 o'clock at night, and we did it every day. I think we started off by doing Tai Chi out on this golf course, because we were staying in some 5-star hotel. I should know the name of it because it's actually on the Gold Coast and you guys would know it. But so we stayed on there, and then we played volleyball in the afternoon. And I'll tell you about the volleyball story, because there are a lot of interesting lessons that came out of that. But it's funny, getting submerged into this, I have a new understanding of the way cults work. Like you could imagine, I think the way cults work, you go into an enclosed area, and as time progresses, you slowly do more and more outrageous things as time passes. Like on the first day, you're kind of getting comfortable with it, and then on the second day, they started to make suggestions to you that you should start each day thinking about declaring what it was that, like, who you are. I am David Jennings, I am an entrepreneur, I'm going to achieve this, and start off thinking that in your mind. And then day 3 they suggested that you stand on the edge of your balcony and scream it out at the top of your voice out the edge of your balcony, which I think ended up annoying all of the other people who were attending the resort as well. Like, it was quite funny in the morning at 6 a.m. you had 200 people all attending this workshop out on their balcony screaming out, I'm an entrepreneur, and it was just real craziness. But like the further you got into this rabbit hole and you started sort of going down into it, you started to almost like break yourself out of your comfort zone and start to do things that you weren't normally going to do. And it's funny, I think you all very much underestimate what it is that you can achieve. And I mean, we were starting at early day and then pushing ourselves really hard all the way through and finishing at 11 at night. And we did that for like 5 days straight. And I really think you're underestimating what it is that you can achieve in your business over a very short time frame. I think that was one of the big key takeaway messages that Brad Sugars was trying to put into that message is, if you can just do what we did in 5 days, imagine doing like that over the next 12 months and funneling all of that energy into your business, as long as you've got that real clear focus. So one of the things that he did as well, he talked about this idea that the way that you respond in games is a great indicator as to the way that you respond in life when certain things happen. So he set up this whole the whole weekend, it was like I said, it was orchestrated. It was like master of the puppets. And one of the things that we did was he set up early on, we were going to play a volleyball game. So he broke us up into teams, and this is how we broke up the day. Like, the workshop was all about wealth creation, but I said we started off doing Tai Chi, and then we yelled off the edge of our balconies, and then we went and sat in these seminars that lasted from like 9 a.m. Like, I mean, you think today was a full-on day. Like, I mean, we were going until 11 o'clock at night, and he wanted to demonstrate that what happens in life gets replicated in these games. So when he divided us up into groups, one of the first things that happened was they said, okay, well, I want you to come up with who is going to be the leader of the volleyball team, or the captain for the volleyball team. So for me, we were there, and this was very early on. It was only like day 1 or day 2 when they assigned us to these groups, and they asked around who's going to be the captain, and everybody said Dave's going to be the captain, Dave's going to be the captain, Dave's going to be the captain. And it was funny, at that time I didn't feel like I was ready to step up. And I was only sort of 20 at the time, 20, 21, because it was around that MCG time, and I didn't realise that, was I ready to be a leader? Was I ready to step up? Like, I don't think you ever really know that you're ready. I don't think you're going to get that feeling where you go, oh, now is the time for me to really step up. I kind of got forced into it, and I didn't think I was ready. But we started having these training sessions, and like, I didn't know how to train volleyball. I don't know anything about volleyball, and after the first training session, I was walking back to my room, and I just happened to overhear there was another guy, because I mean they broke us all into groups, and everybody nominated their own coach, and this particular volleyball group was still training, and I'd walked by and I overheard that this guy was a volleyball coach, and he'd coached he had coached like the Australian Olympic volleyball team, and he happened to be at this workshop. So I sort of hung around. I sort of caught that in the back of my mind, and I thought, I'll just wait here till he finishes up. So he finished off talking to his group, and they all went, and I said, can I borrow you for a second? I pulled him aside and asked him for some pointers, and he gave me a few tips. One of the tips was, he said, you want to create rituals for yourself. He said all peak performing athletes have these rituals that they perform. Like, for example, when you look at a tennis player, sometimes what a lot of tennis players will do is at the end of each point, what you'll see them do is they turn their back from the net. They swap the hand that they're holding the racket in, and then they'll walk away. And what does that do? In their mind, they've set up this ritual. It gets them to disconnect from that point. They've swapped the racket, gives their hand a chance to recuperate, and then when they get to the end, turn around, swap back, ready to go for the next point. Same with a volleyball player. He was saying just before he does a serve, they'll come out, they'll throw the ball up, and you'll see them, they'll slap the ball. I don't know if you've seen the volleyball players do that. And they go, man, and they smack it really hard, and it gets them in state. It's like a ritual that they've done over and over and over and over. So that way it almost like puts them back into the moment when they're peak performance, and they've trained their mind to know that when I do that, this is a ritual and a rhythm and a routine that I've done a million times before. So an interesting lesson, you might start to think about, well, how can you start to create rituals in your life and the way that you do business to make sure that you do things on a repeatable basis, to make sure that you're optimised and operating at a peak performance. The other thing that he did, he said, because he gave me 3 pointers, he said also you want to assign team members to different roles. So he had, one person was the person who stands right up next to the net underneath, and their job, he told them what their job was, to make sure that they tapped the ball over at just the right time. And because they were up front, they only did it gently, whereas the person up the back, their role wasn't to hit it over the net. Their role was to make sure that they hit the ball forward and get it closer to the net, so that you get it closer to the person who's either going to just tap it over or spike it over. So making sure that you assign the roles to the right people. And then the final one, which was really important as well, was to make sure that communication is absolutely key. You want to make sure that you communicate really, really well with your team. because when they were going for shots, you'd call it out. You say, yep, this one's mine, just so the rest of the team knew what's going on. And a few of these lessons, it's funny the way that now that I start to think about it, how important they are in life. Like, I mean, that idea of the game echoes what happens in life. And communication, I'm finding, especially with my Filipino team, how important it is to make sure that you communicate really well, especially when you're working in a team environment. So we ended up training, like I said, every day as we sort of led up into the final playoff day. And I remember the playoff day quite vividly, because Brad Sugar started off by bringing out $10,000 in like $20 wads. So he just had like $1,000 in little $20 wads, and he had 10 of them. So he just had a whole bunch of cash, right? And then he put it out next to the volleyball thing, and he said, you're playing for $10,000 now. So, I mean, there was a little bit of competition there. We were playing for money, and this was real money. You know, granted, he probably charges us still $4 or $5 grand a ticket. So, you know, $10 wasn't really that much, considering how much money you would have made from the whole workshop. But the playoff began, and I mean, we did really well. It was great to get that coaching. Like, it's important that you get a coach and a mentor who can show you what it is that you need to do to grow. And like, I mean, I moved through the finals, and we did really good as a team. We got near the end, and then we ended up just getting beat out by the better team. And the guy who was the Olympic volleyball coach, his was the team that actually ended up winning. We didn't play against him, but you should have seen he had this amazing, massive like serve that he would do, and it would just crush absolutely everyone. It was like his move, and I think it was because no one else had played volleyball, and he had, so he just had this serve that was just, it was like an unfair advantage. He'd just sit there and go bang, and hit it up, but it would go like 50 metres up in the air, and then it would just come down on the other side, like right in the back left-hand corner, like he'd done it a million times before, and you know, no one could end up returning it. He ended up winning, but I remember taking away a few sort of key lessons from that. And I remembered, firstly, I mean, it was really good. We played as a team, and it pulled us all together, and you know, the importance of needing a coach, and everything that you've learnt up until now that, you know, we've gone through, you're not, even if you execute it really, really well, you're not necessarily going to get it right the first time. It takes time and effort, and like I said, building a business is hard work, and making sure that everything's all lined up, and you might try a few times and you might not succeed, but that's just part and parcel of it all. So you need to be prepared for that, and just know that once you get everything set up, you get clear on what your vision is, and I didn't get into any of the woo-woo stuff at the start of the day, but get clear on what it is that you're going after, then make sure that your business map is going to help you achieve those goals. There's no point in you building up a business that's centered around you if you don't want to, you know, maybe you want to live a life where you can go away on holidays for 6 months of the year or something like that. But if you build a business that's all built around you, you're not going to do that. So know up front what it is that you're trying to build, and then you'll get there much quicker. So where to from here? If you need any help with anything, done for you service over at Melbourne SEO Services. We've got, if you want to do some self-study, I talked about a few of the courses throughout the day. Also got some mentoring as well. Like I said, I only do 5 spots, and we've got a few right now. If you want to find out a little bit more about what it is that we do, you can check out Melbourne SEO Services. Podcast interviews is a great place to go and get a whole lot of free audios and find out a little bit more about me. If you want to see my own personal blog, that's at davidjennings.com.